here's what we're going to look at today. So the reason why I wanted to do this is because I want to discuss why map win rates matter and what you can do about them. So one of the biggest things that I talked about, even going back to the ban meta and talking about counters in Overwatch, like before we even had bans, before we even had map win rates and public stats, is that people vastly underestimated the value of maps when it comes to how well a character can perform. Classic example I used to always say is that you probably shouldn't be swapping to counter Winston with Bastion or Roadhog if you're playing versus a Winston on Gibraltar. And if you are a Winston on Gibraltar, you probably shouldn't be swapping at all versus basically anything up until third point. Now, that's just kind of one minor example, but the reason is that the things that make Winston counters oppressive is just exploding his HP when he can't avoid them. But if the map gives you lots of opportunity to avoid them, then you should be totally fine. Mercy, even versus heavy dive on maps with a lot of verticality, like Paraíso, can find relative success as long as she's able to utilize her verticality, right? Doesn't mean that it's always inappropriate to swap in those circumstances, but going back years and years and years, it's always been important to look at the context. And a lot of players, most ranked players, even all the way up to the highest level, do not consider the map. The reason why it matters now is because we actually have proof that this matters. This isn't just conjecture. This isn't just theory. It's actual proof. In addition to that, the reason why this matters is not just because of bans or because of counterplay, but it also highlights if you are an OTP or you really enjoy playing a certain character, it's going to, number one, it's going to highlight that a map is a problem. We'll talk about why that map is a problem. But more importantly, we're going to talk about what you can actually do with that problem, because one of the reasons why win rates on maps are so ugly for certain characters is because the way that people default AFK play the character is going to be exacerbated in a negative fashion if the map doesn't allow you to do it correctly. Let me give you guys an example. We're probably going to look at Lucio Havana. We guys, for those of you who've been around, we know the Lucio on Havana, not good. But it doesn't mean it's unplayable if you're able to go red at Lucio, able to do crazy things, silly flanks right at whatever. The reason why that's the case is because Lucio likes small spaces. He's more of a congested character, right? So if the map doesn't provide those congested spaces easily, bronze, silver, gold, plat, diamond, masters, and so on, Lucio players even, will not adjust. And that's part of the reason why... Thank you, Nguyen. That's part of the reason why his win rate's so bad in Havana is because most ranked players are too stupid, or too inexperienced, or too just don't have the engagement there to figure the problem out. Now, does that mean that Lucio's good in Havana? No. But if you actually apply yourself and try to figure out the problem and figure out where can I play on this map, your win rate on Havana individually might go up a few percent. You might win a few more games. And crucially, you'll actually figure out what makes the character strong as well. So this is not just to talk about interesting statistics and what we can learn from them, but what do you actually do with this information, right? You can make it work if you figure it out. You can make it work if you figure it out. It will never be optimal to play Lucio and Havana in all metas in all situations, but you can make it work. And so what we're going to do here is, I know I don't want to get any stat nerds in my chat. I know you guys are good criticisms of maybe the formatting here, but we're just going to do the easy thing here. Just close enough. It's all right. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have my tank stats pulled up here, and we're going to look for outliers here. We're going to look for both negative and positive outliers, and we'll start with tank right now. And we're just going to go down the list here. Now, to be efficient with our time and not spend hours and hours upon this, what I think we ought to do is I think we should not look at every single map, but maybe a couple of maps that are a little bit weird and kind of go from there. So if we were to look at, like, let's say, obviously no Clash. If we were to look at a control map for tank, what control map do you guys want to see here? What do you guys, let's start with the control maps here. What do you guys want to look at? Antarctic, Busan. We can zoom in even a little bit here. Whoops. Ilios. Ooh, lots of votes for Ilios. Okay, maybe you guys know something that I don't know. So let's look at our win rates. We're looking at here. Let's zoom out so we can get every tank if we can. Yeah, we'll get a little bit of that Orisa in there. And yeah. Okay, immediate outliers. Junker Queen is the same, so she's the number one. But it's more important to see, basically, if you ever look at, like, why are the top tanks all, like, a little bit worse? Or it's because the bottoms are not quite as bad. Like, Orisa's gone up 2% win rate and so on, right? So let's actually look at these here. So Junker Queen goes up. Let's look for outliers. Ball goes down a lot. Bad equals Ilios. Now, why do you guys think that's the case? Why do you think Ilios is not a great ball map? It's not a terrible ball map, but it's certainly not good. What do you guys think that is? It's tight, congested. I think Ilios Ruins is pretty good. There's lots of good slam spots. There's lots of mines value with King of the Hill. But the more congested the map, the less value your mobility provides. And also, it's harder to avoid counters, especially tanks. Lots of tight corners. That's why I think King's Row, I predict, will probably not be a great map. Roadhog, this is an amazing map for Roadhog. I mean, that's almost 5%. So we'll say good Ilios. We don't even need to take, let's not even write anything down. We don't need to write more stuff down. It's more about a lesson rather than hard numbers right now. Yes, Roadhog is amazing. Why? More congested, which is better for Roadhog, generally, unless you're playing versus Orisa. But crucially, CC. Pulling people off the map. Can freaking do it on all 3 points. That's a cornball move, but it works. It's freaking good. Now, there's another interesting one here. Winston actually goes up. Okay, so what do you guys think Winston goes up so significantly? I mean, that's almost 2% right there. Why does Winston go up significantly? It's tight, yes, but it's also tall, with the exception of Ruins. There's a lot of high grounds, and compared to Wrecking Ball, Winston doesn't mind a little bit of congestion, a little bit of Primal Rage value, you get what I'm saying? A little bit of bubble value. So absolutely, right? Even Diva, similar tank in that regard, she goes up by a little bit, not a lot, but she definitely goes up. Now Sigma goes down. Why do you guys think Sigma goes down? Easy to get run over. And still a lot of high grounds too. Sigma, I think, is really strong in Ilios Ruins. Very narrow, very flat. But yeah, no sightlines. Just a lot worse in this map. And so on. So, we're specifically from a statistical perspective, we're always going to pay attention to the characters with higher pick rates because it's less likely that there's a bad chance. Like, for example, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on Sigma's too much or Malga's too much, or even Wrecking Balls to an extent, only because it's kind of what we expected, so we'll talk about it, so maybe we're cheating with this. But generally, we want to look at the characters with higher pick rates because it's more likely to get a larger, more accurate sample size. But regardless, I mean, same thing with Zarya, right? Zarya's noticeably worse. Too congested, she gets run over. She's too slow. So what do you do with this information? Wrecking Ball players, the map is too narrow, too congested. What do you do? How do you play it? Do you not play Wrecking Ball on this map? Of course not. He's still good. He's still in the top 4, right? What do? You freaking need your high grounds, guys. Pyro's good thing for the 7. You freaking need your high grounds. Use every high ground that you possibly can and make sure that you're getting good mine value, because that's by far your best value on this map. It's congested, so more mines, more slams. Avoid the tank as best as you possibly can. Use every high ground at your disposal. Do not get lazy. Yeah. You look at a map like Hog. How do we leverage Hog here? Utilize your CC. How do you play Sigma in Ilios Ruins? Try to play it on the left lane, right? Play it on the mega side lane. How do you play it in Lighthouse and Will? Try to check angles. At least with Lighthouse, maybe try to clear high ground, then drop. Whatever you got to do. You're vulnerable to multiple angles, so you're going to have to really lock in the space that you can control. Yeah. Okay, let's move along here. Let's actually do Ilios with our DPS, because I think DPS might even be more interesting. So we'll focus on our DPS. No surprises here. Holy crap. So we're not gonna have everything on screen right here, but okay. Genji's actually a little better, which is cool. So Genji does even better. Venture, that's a little better as well. Reaper, a lot better. Why? What do Genji, Venture, Reaper? It's verticality. Close sightlines and verticality. And Pharah, who's, by the way, pretty decent already. She's pretty solid. She's amazing. Verticality. And by the way, verticality here isn't just sky hitbox. It's all those high grounds you can flank around from. That's the big thing with the Pharah rework. Using those verticalities, using those angles, using those flanks. Echo, definitely better as well. Almost 2% better. Now, what characters should be worse? Well, the characters that are already struggling in Season 19. Hit scans. With the exception of Ruins, there's not a lot of space here. So Hanzo drops more than a full percentage. Even a character like Sombra, who's not very good, is kind of middling here. She's got a couple points where health packs are okay. I don't think it's a bad summer map. Ash goes from 50.7 to 47.8. Yeah, heck, even Junk does better with the more congested chokes. Let's look at the bottom here, see if there's any outliers here. I know I'm going to miss some outliers, like, wow, that character's way worse and you just skipped over it because we didn't see it. It's going to be a bias towards the either end, and we might miss some stuff here. So we'll look here at the bottom here. Widow actually tanks to 45.3. Very low pick rate, so worth highlighting that. But Ruins is great for Widow, and that's about it. Soldiers, even not super amazing, drops a bit here because it's not enough wide flanks for Soldier. So what do you take from that, guys? If you're playing a hit scan, you're gonna have to find long angles. You might have to take some riskier flanks. If you're forcing Widowmaker on Ilios, you're gonna have to be creative and take risks because there's nothing good about sitting in the back anyway. Because there is no back, at least not on Ruins. How do you play Widow in Lighthouse Attack? You got to flank. You got to be a rat. You got to go hard flank, sit quietly, wait for a shot, throw a Venomine, see if they come after you, bait it, and if they ignore you, just kind of spooking people, right? It's difficult. And then obviously kind of emphasizing the characters that are already doing well. If you want to do even better, really utilize the verticality. Okay, let's look at supports here. I mean, these ones probably won't be a major surprise either. Let's take a look. I mean, Wuyong is much worse. Lack of sightlines. Lucio is much better. That should tell you something. Mercy is about the same. Brigitte is much better. Now, ooh, that one's spicy. Why do you guys think Brig is so much better here? Tighter sightlines, right? Exactly. I mean, you have to be careful of brawl tanks for sure, but it's harder to get poked out. Zen definitely a little bit worse, more compressed. So again, the same thing with Widow, you just have to be more creative. Moira goes up, so your mobility and your close range strength's way better. Ana's a little bit worse. Again, you got to find your sightlines as much as you possibly can. Kiriko does a bit worse, which surprises me, but also doesn't surprise me because the way that ranked players play Kiriko is really bad. They just don't take angles. But I actually think this map is actually okay for Kiriko if you know what you're doing. And yeah, I mean, again, no major surprises here, right? You're noticing a pattern. Long sightline characters just don't feel so good. Characters that have mobility are going to feel a lot better in Ilios. And that's something that you're definitely going to see on a lot of the other King of the Hill maps. I know we're not looking at every map here, but this stuff definitely applies to Oasis to an extent, to Samoa to an extent, Lijiang Tower to an extent, and Antarctic to an extent, and so on. So you got to really do your work here. You got to really, if you're playing these characters in these situations, and I don't discourage it. I'm not saying you have to play the highest pick rate to win. If you don't know how to play the character, you don't want to play the character, don't do it. But you do have to play to your character's strengths, and if the character's strengths don't work on that map, you have to make them work. You have to be creative, take risks. It doesn't matter if your teammates flame you. You're doing nothing on the character anyway. Showing them the kill feed isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're dying, if you're actually doing something, you're trying something. Yeah. Okay. What do you guys want to do next? Give me another map. We could do another King of the Hill map, but we could also move on to Escort. What do you guys think? Why is EDRE so high? Good question. She has a very small sample size compared, I think the lowest sample size out of all the supports minus Weaver. Oh, way lower than Weaver. Okay, yeah. So there could be that. EDRE is also, well, no, she's not that high. She's just fine. She's exactly what she should be. She's actually a tiny bit worse, so. Havana, Gibraltar. Let's look at Gibraltar, and then maybe we'll do a couple escorts here. We don't have to do just one. I think there's enough difference here. Gibraltar. Let's look at. I'm gonna give spoiler alert. Close your eyes. Let's do tank. Broad map, big stuff. I mean, ball is just unbelievable. 57.2. Winston, Doomfist, anything with mobility skyrockets. Now Queen's still up there, but you notice that she takes a big hit. So if you're playing Queen and Gibraltar, it goes to show that you're going to struggle a little bit more. You're going to need to be a little bit more creative clearing high ground. Same thing goes with Reinhardt. You're going to need to clear high grounds. Force point when you can. Leave point. Try to clear high grounds whenever you possibly can. Don't get your face blown off by a bunch of poke. Same thing goes with Sigma, right? Noticeably worse. Hazard's a bit better, bit of verticality. Diva, noticeably better because, again, of the verticality. Now, interestingly enough, it's a really low pick rate, but Malga's a bit better. That's kind of funny. And Zarya's in the toilet down here. I mean, look at Roadhog Zarya win rate, right? Like down at least what, 2%, almost 2. Well, yeah, a little over a percent here. Verticality matters, man. That's what we're talking about. Mobility matters on maps where that's good. And here's the funny part here. I bet some people in chat can be like, yeah, this stuff doesn't matter in bronze. Let's actually go to silver. Let's actually find out. Now we're gonna need the tank win rates on all maps first. Rein, Junker Queen, Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, Zarya, right? Okay. All right. Watch that. Watch this. Doomfist skyrockets up. Rein drops. Winston goes up. Silver Winston players are winning.
That I made on this PLS.
You can. I may not be able to look at it, but yeah, potentially. So silver players, I guess there's too small of a Wrecking Ball sample size, literally 2%. But silver players are killing it on Doomfist and Winston on this map. Silver players. Silver players. And yeah, and the Zarya band that you guys see, it's not even that good in this map. He's a little worse. If we go to gold, Ball still top, Doomfist, Ball, Rein, Junker Queen, Doomfist. We go to Jib again. Ball's a 60% win rate. It's a smaller sample size again. Winston's up there, Doomfist up there. These are gold players. Gold players. And we won't do this for every, but I guess my point being here is that this is why it's not that your teammates don't matter at all, but it's not, oh, well, the gameplay is different. It doesn't in some ways, but the performance of the character on the map still matters. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going here to damage. I don't think there's going to be any major surprises here. I do think that range pressure is better because of how open the map is compared to Ilios. So Ilios has the ups and not a lot of sightlines. This one has both the ups and the sightlines, and you see it. Look at Ash's win rate here. Ash's win rate goes up by a lot, almost 2%. Widow, look at Widow. Wow. Almost 2% as well. Tracers actually goes down a teeny bit, but basically the same. Farah is about the same. Hanzo is about the same. Torb, interestingly, goes up, or down, sorry, a little bit, which again is not a huge surprise. It's a little too open.
I was watching Urk's review. Also, why didn't you
We'll have to talk about it later, Inks. Basically, it's just doing what your angle allows you to do. And yeah, the replay codes got wiped. That's why. Now, interestingly enough, Hanzo's about the same. I suspect due to the fact that maybe it's a little too broad for Hanzo, a little too open for Hanzo, but he does have the verticality and the range to perform at least on par. Let's look at the bottom characters. Venture always surprises me on this map. Venture does well. I think there's just enough verticality to make Venture work. A little bit of visual bug there. It's fine. Who's in the bottom here? Sojourn actually does a bit worse, which is a bit of a surprise. Bastion definitely a bit worse. No surprises there. May a bit worse. No surprises there. Cassidy a bit better. A little bit more sightlines. Junkrat a bit worse. Some are about the same. Freya definitely a bit better. A lot of verticality, a lot of sightlines. Symmetra's a lot worse. I think Symmetra's okay on this map. Again, it's just going to be one of those things where like, okay, so this is a noticeably worse map for Symmetra. So you got to be teleporting on angles. You got to be using verticality with your high grounds. You got to be poking. You can't sit on cart with Symmetra here. You just can't do it. So it's a noticeably worse map. So you got to be leveraging that verticality as much as you possibly can. But yeah, no major surprises there. So sort by all tiers. I think it's important that you sort by all tiers because this feedback is for all players, right? I mean, we could get more granular for sure, but this is just general advice, right? Let's look at supports here. Wu Yang a bit better, I guess, because of sightlines. Mercy a bit better, again, because of verticality. EDR, sightlines. Juno, sightlines, verticality, a little bit of both. Lucio, noticeably worse. Wide open, a lot of verticality. Tough. So you got to start being more aggressive. You got to try to get off the floor. You got to close the distance some way. You need to find a way to close the gap, right? This one surprises me. I would not expect Zenyatta to be too bad here. It is maybe a bit of a smaller-ish sample size, but I feel like the sightlines should compensate for the verticality to where he should be close to the same pick rate or win rate. So this one's a bit of a surprise. It's not a major downturn. Ana, bit of an uptick, not a huge surprise there. Brig's a weird one. So she doesn't have a lot of range, but she does have the ability to support people from distance, so it's okay. Kiriko better wall ride or wall climb, sorry. range. It's fine. Moira's not great. But yeah, it seems a little bit more compressed. Life Weaver verticality is good. Yeah. Do you think D.Va should be higher on high ground maps? Well, no, because D.Va's verticality is decent, but it's slow. So she's good on verticality maps. I mean, we can see it here, right? 49.1, and then 47.4. So she's good, but you might not see it quite as exacerbated as you would with something like a Winston. So, hey, Greetus. All right, what do you guys want to do next? Havana? You guys want to do Havana? Let's do something more pokey. Let's do Havana. Let's do Havana. Havana. I mean, Wrecking Ball's even better. It's wide open. It's broad. Doomfist. I look at Doomfist and Wrecking Ball as the dive tanks that can close gaps much faster and be a little bit more self-sufficient. So these really unfriendly dive maps, these wide open maps, Doomfist and Wrecking Ball are actually really good. They're really good. They have ways of avoiding damage. They have ways of mitigating damage consistently. They can close large gaps way faster than other characters can. So longer sightlines are a lot less scary for them than they are for something like a D.Va, as we mentioned, or even a Winston. Hazard as well. I think Hazard might be kind of middling on this map, would be my prediction. And yeah, he's a tiny bit worse. Sigma, obviously, long sightlines is great. Ryan, surprisingly not trash. Shield gets a lot of value, but yeah, you're going to have your mileage may vary. I'm actually surprised to see Zarya do so well. I would expect her to struggle more in longer sightlines, but Ramatra as well. Astonishingly well. So, and not a small sample size either. Pretty decent sample size. So Shield strong. Those minor perks are strong. The ability to live is strong. Characters that are in the toilet, I mean, it's the characters with it. And this is funny because I do see a lot of people. Now, Orissa's slightly better and Roadhog's about the same. But I still see a lot of people that look at like Orisa Roadhog as like the poke tanks. But in the reality of Overwatch 2, they aren't really poke tanks. Orissa's doesn't have without her shield, she's just not that good at range. Her hitbox is too big and she loses HP too fast. And having a gun doesn't mean that your gun is, because if you peek somebody, you need your gun to be equal or better than theirs. And that's not really the case with Orisa. She loses those HP trades a lot. And the same thing goes with Roadhog. Having range doesn't mean that you are good at range. It's kind of why Doomfist is good in these maps, because what he lacks in range, he can close the gap so incredibly fast, your range doesn't matter. So yes, obviously we're not really concerned about Orisa's 45% win rate. I mean, Orisa's just not very strong. But what we are concerned about is that Orisa's win rate really doesn't go up that much at all, despite no real serious verticality in this map. Empty Street, thank you for the sub. So I'm not saying don't pick Orisa here. She's okay, but you're picking an Orisa on Sniper. This isn't Overwatch 1, Betty. This ain't Overwatch 1. You're going to have to find a way to close the gap. You're going to have to find a way to get within range. I mean, even her ultimate is a lot worse at range. I mean, it's terrible at range. I mean, it doesn't do anything at range, right? So, I mean, Bongo back in the day, for those that remember, was like one of the best ranged ultimates in the game, maybe the best in terms of consistency, and it's just not there, right? And if you're playing something like a Winston, playing like a D.Va, even, I guess, to a lesser extent, playing like a Roadhog, you're going to have to find a way to close the gap. Flank, set up, be creative. You might have to leave your team a little bit to close the gap on somebody, because otherwise your face is just going to get melted off. Yo, cheers. So, some feedback, right? Some feedback if you ever do find yourself playing that map. You're going to have to be more creative. Genji's good in this map. There's a myth that I think Genji's bad on sniper maps, and I think that's just false. You have lots of ways of closing the distance. You match up versus a lot of the sniper characters like Widow, Ashe, Hanzo, and even Sojourn and Freya now that they're 225 is pretty favorable. So Genji's good. Widow, obviously good. Hanzo, good. Torb is surprisingly good. Torb is a weird one. I'm actually surprised. Torb is a strange one because he has a ranged weapon, but he's kind of a fat hitbox, so he loses a lot of sniper duels, but apparently the game says, nah, he's okay. So maybe there's something to be seen there. Venture, a lot worse. A little too broad for Venture, so Venture's mobility is not as consistent, more cooldown reliant than Genji. Not bad, but not as good. Ashe, decent. Tracer, it's pretty far, so she's okay. And then Reaper, just too open. Too open. Freya, a lot better. Heck, even Mei with her weapon. Fine. Sim struggles. Again, I think this showcases a smaller pick rate for sure. But Symmetra Echo Faro, not great in this map for sure, but you're going to have to do some flank things, my friends. You're going to have to do some flank things. You have teleport, you have flight, you have double mobility cooldown. You're not beating hit scan poking from range. Now, obviously smaller sample size, but that checks. Sojourn down there in the toilet, but you know what? It's a whole percentage better than expected. So Junkrat's terrible. This is a terrible map for Junkrat. You're going to have to flank as well. So, yeah. This is a very difficult far map because it has long sightlines and it doesn't have verticality. Very good verticality. So you're going to have to find ways of hard flanking. And again, I feel like most of the people in this 3.4% pick rate are just not doing that. You know? So... huge tank down for Reaper, though. What is that? 49.1. A whole 3% down. Crazy. Pharah as well. In the toilet. Support real fast. And this one, again, no huge surprises, right? Long range with Zenyatta. I mean, he's the GOAT. Wuyang, Pokey, Mercy pocketing Ana. Big spike in Honor. 2.3%. Wow. EDR is about the same, which is kind of funny to me. I would definitely expect EDR to be better. We could sit here and try and think it out, but I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I am surprised. This is not what I'd expect at all.
Goodbye.
Hi, love you.
Love you.
Lucio's so bad. 3.5% almost lower. 3.3. You got to close the gap, man. You have to find a way to flank. You got to Frogger it up. Straight up. Especially in some of those points, man. You got to take some risks. BAP in the mud is interesting. It may be that the range is too extreme for his weapon. You look at something like an Ana and a Zenyatta and a Wuyang, no fall off, really. Maybe it's the same thing with EDRE as well, where the sightlines the fall off kind of kicks in too hard. And one of the advantages of Baptiste is verticality as well. It's good on second, not really useful on first and third as much. Not as much anyway. Moira's terrible. You got to flank, my friends. Lifeweaver's better. That is a bit odd, but who knows? We could definitely come up with some stuff. There's some verticality. He's decent at shooting tanks and so on. So, yeah. What do you even do on Brigand Map? I mean, just flank. You just flank. Or you find an angle on the tank and help your tank win the tank trade without opening yourself up the sidelines. Okay, what do you guys want to do next? Let's move on to Escort. Are there any Escort outliers you guys want to look at? I guess we already did Escort. Sorry, Flashpoint? Any preference for Flashpoint map? I would say either New Junk or Suravasa. Suravasa, that seems to be the more popular one nowadays, I've noticed. We'll just stick with support because we're already here. Expediency. I mean, Lucio and Wuyang are really good. Movement's good. There's enough sightlines for Wuyang to do work. Now, freaking Mercy is good on Suravasa. Now, Suravasa has slightly more open sightlines, I think, than something like an Atlas. But, wow. Valk's good. Movement good. Telling you, man, Mercy's not too shabby nowadays. That is a surprise. There's not even a lot of verticality like there is on, let's say, Powder ISO for Mercy. But Lucio's insane. Speed, ability to close the distance, move around the map. It's really good. Really good. Zenyatta noticeably a little bit worse because it's harder to move around. EDRE, maybe that's the sweet spot for the sightlines. Smaller sample size. But maybe that's the sweet spot for the sightlines there. Brigitte a little bit better. A little bit easier to close the gap. Juno's a little bit worse, which surprises me. Kiriko's definitely a little bit better. Moira, about the same, maybe a tiny bit better. And Ana's just in the trash because it requires too much effort to move and rotate, which means you better get your cheeks sorted. If you're playing Ana and Flashpoint, you can. You just got to get your rotation. Same thing with Zenyatta. Figure your movement out. Juno's probably run over. Probably just a skill issue. I do not think Juno's bad on Flashpoint whatsoever. It's not much worse. It's only a little bit worse, but yeah. And a little bit loof. I'm just, with my setup right now, it's like really hard to pull up stuff on a different screen. So yeah, no surprises here for the most part. Speed matters. If you're slow, you got to get your cheeks in order. Now, I believe these win rates are better than they used to be since they adjusted spawns. But the ability to move across the map is valued. Skill issues, and this would be less of an issue in higher ranks? Maybe. I mean, we could check that, maybe. But the sample size might not be large enough. So if we look at, let's say Grandmaster and Champion, Juno is 49.2, and then we move that to Suravasa. Again, sample size here. She's worse, but it's such a small sample size. It might be that she's too fragile versus some of the more meta flankers that are good in this map. What if you look at Masters? I don't know. 51.9 in Suravasa, but still a relatively small sample size, 51.9. Yeah, she's a lot better in Masters, so I don't know. Too much variance would be my guess. Or some other variable that we just can't track realistically, so I would draw no conclusions there. I disagree strongly, Loof. I disagree strongly. Maybe it depends on your comp. But, okay, let's look at DPS. DPS. Okay, Genji good. There's not a ton of verticality in this map, so it's not like he's amazing. He's just fine. Venture's fine. Oh, I'm so stupid. This is the dangerous statistics, guys. You can explain anything. Sem, teleport, OP. Rotations, OP. Decent enough chokes, OP. Insane. Smaller sample size, but insane. Venture, better. Genji, slightly better. Tracer, noticeably better. Lots of wide space to move. Torb, anti-dive. Decent enough sightlines and hit scan, not really welcome. Decent. Heck, even Pharah's freaking decent. You can move around. There's not a lot of verticality, but yeah. Reaper good there. It's not a big surprise. Like, all these movement-oriented characters or anti-movement characters like Sim and Torb are really good. Ashe is actually surprisingly good. This definitely surprises me. I would not have expected that, but maybe there's a decent enough sightlines. May, better. Echo, a little bit better. And we look in the toilet down here. Widow, 41.4. You got to move, man. You got to move. And even Cassidy, noticeably worse. Sojourn, slightly better because movement's good. Freya's movement's not lateral enough, would be my guess. Junkrat, not as good. Sombra, I feel like should be better than 48.9, but she is a little bit better. I also feel like Soldier should be slightly better, but I feel like not enough Soldier players take deep enough flanks. And then by the time that they get to the rank that they know that they should, they start running into Grandmaster Tracers. So, yeah. This is just like a meta thing as well. Like, this is why we look at the context of win rates, because the reason why hit scans are in the toilet is because hit scans are in the toilet, period, right now. So, tank here. I mean, Wrecking Ball's just, you know, it's really good. Wrecking Ball and Queen, both speed, movement-oriented characters, really, really nice. Ryan does fine as well. Doomfist does fine. Winston even does fine, even though it's a relatively flat map, just because movement is valued. Malga, noticeably better. Movement is valued, even with the smaller sample size. Hazard, about the same. Diva, slightly better. Movement is valued. Whereas characters like Orisa, which I actually see a decent amount on this map, she's worse. It's just too much movement for her. Too much open space and too much movement. Same thing goes for Roadhog. Same thing goes for Sigma. Ramatra is even a tiny bit worse. Even though he has a bit of movement, it's just not enough. Heck, even Zarya is a tiny bit worse. Yeah. I don't think Zarya is bad here, but like, I think the reason why I'm highlighting these again is that I want to call your attention to, like, this is why you have to get your cheeks in order in terms of your movement and your rotations if you're playing a slower tank. Because once you commit to an angle, you're not really going to get a chance to move. So, I mean, Diva's not that low. Diva's fine. Diva's higher than her normal win rate by a decent chunk. Yeah, a full percentage point. That's good. Diva's just not super strong in all ranks right now. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I think we're on the hybrid here. Yeah, what do you guys want to look at? Eichenwald, Blizzard World, Hollywood, Kings Row, Midtown, Numbani, Paraiso. I feel like Kings Row is going to be the more interesting one because everyone likes Kings Row, or everyone talks about Kings Row. It's the popular choice. Let's look at Kings Row. So maybe not the weirdest outlier, but it's definitely going to be into Rhine. I mean, it's a freaking narrow map, y'all, and the verticality is a little awkward or not leveraged enough to, I mean, it's 55.6, man. That is insane. I'm actually surprised to see Ball do as well as he does. I do think this is probably objectively one of Ball's weaker maps. He's not trash, but I think the sample size is so incredibly small, and maybe it's still good enough when you get big slams and big mines. It's just the staging is more difficult, but the sample size is really small. Doom, he is the choke-oriented. He's good in long sightlines. He's good in tight chokes. He's flexible, man. I actually think Doomfist is the most flexible tank in the game. So, Queen's a bit worse. Now, I have a prediction. Why do you guys think Queen is a little bit worse here? I have a prediction. What do you guys think? On paper, it seems like it should work, right? But I think there's a reason why. I think her matchup versus other brawl flat tanks, when there isn't a lot of value for speed and movement like King of the Hill and Flashpoint, I think her matchup versus Ryan can be hit or miss. I think her matchup versus Orisa can be hit or miss. Zarya, obviously, hit or miss. Ramatra even, hit or miss. So when we see more tanks like Ram here, even though Ram doesn't feel like he's doing great globally, I imagine the matchup versus Queen maybe not too shabby. Ryan, not too shabby. Zarya, I mean, is noticeably better on this map. Just no verticality. I mean, heck, even a Sigma matchup as Queen can be challenging, depending on the situation. So you can't really avoid the other brawl tanks when you need to. I mean, you even look down here, and you actually see a lot of Orisa picked, but because there's zero way for you to close the gap on certain sidelines, it just doesn't function. Like, Roadhog can't avoid his deficiencies as a tank on this map. So, Winston's not very good here. I do think Winston is playable here. You just got to be really creative with how you position. Malga as well, pretty tough. Basically, this is where I'm going to say a little bit of skill issue with some of these, where I think the general existing on point isn't going to work with some of these tanks. It's certainly not going to work with Winston, not going to work with Malga, not going to work with Diva, not going to work with Roadhog or Orisa. You just have to be very creative and clever about your sightlines. Whereas the tanks that can kind of exist, aka Ryan, aka even Zarya, are going to feel better. And then the tanks like Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, those tanks are not existing at point ever anyway. Even bad players probably have an idea that they should be moving around, and so they're more able to get it done. Well, that's the thing, Lexa, is the verticality on first and third point is extremely relevant at the level where people are actually understanding to be able to do it. But that's why we're looking at all tiers here, because not everyone's going to be using that verticality. So if you play Malga on this map, you can make it work. You just got to be super tight with your corners to cover, bait attention, don't stand in the open. Same thing with Orisa, Diva as well. You got to use the verticality. Winston, you got to flank, that kind of stuff. Wow. Not a good second point for Widow, but first point, third point, she's insane. Incredible sightlines, very difficult to access. Insane. I actually think Genji's really good here too, but it looks like there's just a couple of other characters that are just better. At least proportionally. Like, Genji's still really good here, but like all of a sudden all these sniper characters, these Hanzos, the verticality, it's just so much better. Let me tap down here so you guys can see. Yeah. I'm actually surprised to see Ashe not even a little bit higher. 50% seems a tiny bit low for me. Tracer a bit worse, more compressed. But yeah, she killed Mandata here. Yeah, true. Actually, it's lower appropriate. Yeah, Hanzo Widow definitely slapping your mama here. Symmetra, again, you can use the angles here, but maybe if you're not going to be intelligent or experienced enough. May, no surprise. Junk is tolerable. I'm surprised it's not a tiny bit higher, but that's fine. Let's see who's in the toilet here. Soldier. That's not a surprise. The flanks are basically require you to get your hands dirty if you take a flank here. AKA, you have to walk into close, tight sightlines. And that's not something that Soldier's going to win versus most of the characters on that room. He's not going to win versus a May up close, Tracer up close, Genji up close, Reaper up close, Junkrat up close. Where's Cassidy? Is Cassidy just dead? Who killed Cassidy? He's not even here. I imagine this would be kind of a middling map for Cassidy. I'd say he probably jumps up a teeny bit because it's a bit more compressed, but probably not by much. Yeah, it's because some players are beaming plus W on this map. Exactly. They're like, this is a great sim map. You just stand behind your tank and, oh, wait, this is not working. Weird. Yeah. Shocker. It's like not every ranked player knows how to play some of these more utility-focused characters. Support. Now, this one's going to be a weird one because it's like you're going to look at some of these sightline supports and you're like, why are they doing pretty well? It's because it's just not the angles aren't as strong. So Zen, Wuyang kind of exists. Zen especially, just kind of poke. Ana, obviously. Juno, a lot of compressed stuff. Lucio, ironically, a bit worse even with all the Ryan stuff just because you just have to be a lot more creative with how you position. There's just like these long, narrow chokes. And so some of the more flank-focused characters like Kiriko Moira are just even worse. So I am surprised to see Lucio that low, though. I think the map would be compressed enough. Maybe it's third point. Because third point is a bit of a different animal compared to first and second King's Row. It's why Widows and Sightlines are probably boosted. because the Widow's End are so good that even occasionally in professional Overwatch, when that character is not currently part of the meta at all, people will pick them at their point. Just on that particular point. It's so freaking good. It's so freaking good. Yeah, I'm surprised to see BAP not do better here. This feels like the perfect map for BAP with the sightlines and a bit of verticality, but yeah. So, Moira, Kiriko, you're going to have to probably be hard flanking a lot here. You're going to have to be doing some creative stuff. Yeah, it could be Olivine that people pick BAP in the situations when they shouldn't, like to survive more. You know, we see that with Moira as well. Okay. Last one, let's do a push map. What do you guys want to see in push? I imagine we'll probably see similar numbers to like Flashpoint because movement is important on push. Different spawns. The fight locations are constantly changing. What do you guys want to see? Runasapi Colosseo, New Queen Street. What were your filters? I don't know. Let me try it again. We can do... Frick, you guys are split down the middle. A lot of... By the way, if I'm missing questions in chat, I apologize again. I'm on my freaking phone, so... Oh, yeah, he is. It must have been a visual bug. Cassie's worse? What? Wow. Okay. You know what? I feel like there's enough sightlines for him to avoid... See, here's the problem, is I keep thinking a Cassie playing correctly would take all the short angles. But maybe Cassies are just idiots and standing in the open and dying to Widows and Hanzos. Again, you can use statistics to explain everything. Even somebody as brilliant as me is not always going to predict it correctly. Okay. Unfortunate. Because I'm not predicting the optimal behavior. I'm predicting the average behavior, you know? Yeah, there's been a couple of visual bugs, Gavin, but it's been mostly fine. It's like sometimes the FAQ kind of bleeds into the thing, but it's been mostly fine. Okay, let's do Runasapi. This one is pretty close, but we'll just do Runasapi. I think mobility is going to be king here for the most part, with a little bit more flexibility to sightlines. Yeah, Wrecking Ball, Queen, Ryan, Doomfist. Ryan's surprisingly good. Surprisingly good. I would not have imagined that to be quite that good. And he has a large sample size, but those sightlines matter, man. Those sightlines matter. Who's in the toilet here? Oh, jeez. The lack of movement-oriented characters. Orissa's trash. Sigma, also, not great. Hazard, maybe a little bit too much. Zarya, noticeably worse. Yeah. Crazy. Movement's king, man. Movement on a lot of these new modes is really king, and if you are playing one of these worst tanks, you just got to put a little bit more effort. And I want to highlight as well is that, again, as mentioned earlier, a lot of these tanks in the bottom are seen as solution tanks, which is naturally going to tank their win rate because people are going to swap to them when things are going poorly. But I guess that's just to kind of emphasize that, like, these tanks aren't going to just, like, they're not just auto win picks, you know? You have to know how to play the tank if you're going to make Orisa work. I do think Orisa is very decent on Runasapi if you know what you're doing. I think she's okay. It's not wide open. There's enough movement to where you can function without like being overwhelmed. You just have to know what you're doing. Like we just look, so much of the community looks at these characters as like these are problem solvers, and it just doesn't solve the problem. Tracer's insane. Genji, also insane. Venture, insane. Soldier, insane. Now, I love that because I actually think Soldier is really quite good in this map. Longer sight lines, but lots of flank opportunities, which that's exactly what Soldier needs.
Or Ash, I'm not sure what to call you now.
Thank you for the sub, dude. Thank you for the sub. I want to take a pause. I think Soldier should be good in New Queen Street. Based off of that. Let me actually find out. Yeah, he's great. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa, is that his highest win rate map? I don't think it should be Colosseo. Whoa, did you guys see that? 53 something? Whoa! It's broad and it's long. So the sniper characters are really easy to flank and really easy to outmaneuver. And the dive characters are generally easier to outspace. He's really good. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so that explains Runasapi. Similar map in that regard. I mean, you can still make shorter range characters work for sure. I mean, Reapers looks okay. Venture, fine. Genji, it's okay. But I'm actually surprised to see Echo do so well. I mean, mobility is king, but Echo is not at the queen of mobility by any means. So Sombra, lots of mobility. It's good. Again, Sem's pick rate in the toilet. Cass, actually, I feel like does a tiny bit better here. Is he? Am I crazy? He does a tiny bit better. Operates more within his wheelhouse. But yeah, if you get to the characters that require more lateral motion, aka Freya, aka Widowmaker, it doesn't work as well. Junkrat, just too slow. Bastion gets surrounded. Pharah, I feel like is playable, but maybe the sight lines are too open for her. Yeah. I like Push. I think Push is overhated. I do enjoy Push. I've enjoyed both Push and Flashpoint a great deal, personally. And I think certainly the high-level players agree. Low-level players may or may not. There's a lot of movement required. But, I mean, Flash and Push are just basically, what, like 70% of ranked games in Grandmaster are Flash and Push because that's all that gets voted for. But I don't know exactly, but it definitely feels a lot higher. Okay, supports. Movement's king. Lucio's good, which is a bit of a surprise to see him this much higher because it is more of an open map. But yeah, Wu Yang's got that perfect range, motion, balance. Maybe Mercy as well, Idiari. Zen feels like the sightlines are good, but maybe a little bit too much motion, so he's a bit worse. Juno's got that range movement going on for her as well. I wonder if Juno's good in New Queen Street based off of that same metric. I mean, she's not as much of a flanker, though. So, but yeah, she looks like she's a bit better. So I know we said we wouldn't do that, but I was curious. Kiriko a bit better. More open sightlines, more flanks. Let's see here. I'm surprised to see Moira solo. I think Moira is actually okay. Maybe not on Runasapi exactly, but the motion is okay. Ana, interestingly, too slow. Both her and Zen a bit weaker. Bap is interesting, up a tiny bit, which is a bit strange. But yeah. Movement is king on some of these game modes, and if you don't have the movement, you got to establish a strong sightline for sure. Moira's okay, but if you consider Moira players... yeah, that's kind of my point. It's like, I think Moira on Runasapi or Push is actually okay if you know what you're doing. Well, I actually think it's like a pretty good game mode. Like, I'd rather play Moira on Runasapi than most of Escort and Hybrid maps. Like, 90% of them. Because I can utilize my mobility, and I will flank to close the gap. You know, I'm not going to play in the open. I'm going to get to you, you know? And if you heal bot, then you're gonna get your head blown off, you know? Yeah, this is interesting. Couple of surprises, but I hope that, you know, this has not just been a learning, fun time with stats with Ash Crapham, you know, but like actually a reminder of how important it is to understand your character's strengths and weaknesses from a point of mobility and a point of range, right? It's always those two things. And if you're playing a character without a lot of mobility on a very mobile map, you got to make do. You got to find a sight lane. You got to make it work. If you're playing a character with a lot of range on a really compressed map, you got to make it work. If you're playing a character like Lucio on a wide open map, you got to find a way to make it work. You got to play your sight lines. Don't just exist on point and avoid taking risks because you're not providing as much pressure, as much value as the enemy team, whether you're playing support, tank, or DPS. You have to be creative. You have to use your strengths in the suboptimal circumstances as best as you possibly can if you want to perform. And again, just another reminder that a lot of the times the easier characters, if they're seen as solutions, are not always solutions. I think Freya and Runasapi is going to be more of a pro thing, where I think she's playable-ish, but her lack of lateral movement unranked is a huge problem in Runasapi. You're going to die off of cooldown to Sombras, Tracers, Genjis, even stuff like Sojourns even, I think are better. Okay, questions before we talk about the new role thing? I have some notes here. People aren't banning her on the map still, says Gavin. It was part of my original pitch, but I still think it would be interesting to tell people the highest win rate here is for this map at the ban phase. Yeah, I mean, so then let's use this opportunity, guys. Please use your bans around the map, right? Like if you're banning Zarya on Gibraltar, if you really don't like playing Zarya, I get it, but she's just not good. The things that you don't like about Zarya and Gibraltar, unless you're playing like, I don't know, an Orisa, you're not really going to interact with her. So you're not really going to have the problem. You're playing Ana and you don't like playing the Zarya, Gibraltar's not going to really bother you that much. There's going to be so many ways to avoid and go around the Zarya, you know? It's going to remove a lot. You don't hate playing versus Junkrat and you're playing on Havana. Spoiler alert, Junk sucks in Havana, so you're not going to really have the same problems. And so like I think that's kind of like the main thing here. Is like there's a lot of these maps that are just so actively hostile and difficult that even if the character is picked on that map, you're not going to really struggle as much. So I think that's kind of my role here, is that like I know many of the viewers in here probably already know this, but for the 5-10% of you guys that maybe that some of this has been new information for you, it's a reminder, right? I mean, there's a reason these stigmas start, right? They start with content creators and they go from there. So maybe within our own little niche, we can kind of spread the good news that, if you're playing Samoa, I don't think Roadhog, if you're a Rhine or a tank player, I don't think Roadhog's a huge problem here. He's about the same. So we might feel really bad to play into as a Junker Queen at times, but my friend, you're the queen. You're kind of, you got movement, you got speed, you got the way to chunk his face in, you got lots of cover. Whereas if you're playing versus Zarya and Samoa, you might want to ban her on Samoa, So, I mean, heck, look at Ball, guys. Look at Ball. Ball's got no space on Samoa. Lower pick rate, so we won't draw any major conclusions. But I think only one. What's the one on? Is it Beach? No, not Beach. The other one, the City one. That's a good. I think that's a pretty good Wrecking Ball map. But the other two, not so good. It's too narrow. So if you ban Wrecking Ball, probably not good. Probably not necessary. Downtown, yeah. I think the most important thing with bans is that you're using them to tailor your personal experience, not competitively. So if you don't like playing versus a character in any circumstance, yeah, that's your call. But food for thought.